viewers, and welcome to another chapter of reading. Before I begin, fellow SVU fans, our wait is over! I am super excited. And I am literally doing a countdown, because that is how long we have left to wait until Season 27. Yes, you heard that right. Season 27 of SVU. I am super stoked to see Mariska Hargitay back in action. And Kelly Guinness is coming back too. This is going to be a fun season, I bet. A lot of heartwarming, heart-wrenching, etc. moments, but overall, exciting because premiere of Season 27 is later today. And I'm super excited for it. But enough SVU. You came here for Potter, so let's carry on with Potter, shall we? Now, on for today's chapter. Now that my enthusiasm is out of the way. I love ADHD. Anyway, on to the chapter, shall we? Chapter 28. Flight of Prince. Harry felt as though he too were hurtling through space. It hadn't happened. It couldn't have happened. Out of here. Quickly, said Snape. He seized Malfoy by the scruff of the neck and forced him through the door ahead of the rest. Greyback and the squat brother and sister followed, with the latter both panting excitedly. As they vanished through the door, Harry realized he could move again. What was now holding him paralyzed against the wall was not magic, but horror and shock. Yeah, I feel that too, considering that's literally right in front of your eyes. I would be traumatized. Also, this is known as the freeze response in trauma, I believe. Sorry, I'm just going psychologically a little bit in depth, considering, again, SVU premieres today, and I'm so excited. But on to Potter before I get too sidetracked. ADHD is a gift sometimes. Anyway. He threw the invisibility cloak aside as the brutal-faced Death Eater, last to the tower top, was disappearing through the door. Petrus Totalis! The Death Eater buckled as though hit in the back with something solid and fell to the ground, rigid as a waxwork. I've heard those are pretty, although I do wonder how they keep the humidity away during warmer seasons. More on that later, I guess. But he had barely hit the floor when Harry was clambering over him and running down the darkened staircase. This would probably be the fight response kicking in. There are 4 trauma responses. Fight, flight, more on that later, freeze, and fawn. So I'm probably gonna address all of them in this chapter. Well, besides their names alone. But anyway, on to the chapter before I get too in-depth with psychology. I'm just really excited for SVU Season 27, okay? I know it's like 2 hours and some odd minutes away, but it's just like, I'm super excited, okay? But on to the chapter before I get distracted again. Terror tore at Harry's heart. He had to get to Dumbledore and he had to catch Snape. Somehow the two things were linked. He could reverse what happened if he had them both together. Dumbledore could not have died. Oh, Harry. You need this hug. He leapt the last 10 steps of the spiral staircase and stopped where he landed, his wand raised. The dimly lit corridor was full of dust. Half the ceiling seemed to have fallen in, and a battle was raging before him. But even as he attempted to make out who was fighting whom, he heard the hated voice shout, "It's over! It's time to go!" and saw Snape disappearing around the corner at the far end of the corridor. He and Malfoy seemed to have forced their way through the fight unscathed. As Harry plunged after them, one of the fighters detached themselves from the fray and flew at him. It was the wolf, Fenrir. He was on top of Harry before Harry could raise his wand. Harry fell backward, with filthy matted hair in his face, the stench of sweat and blood filling his nose and mouth, hot, greedy breath at his throat. "Petrifistoteles!" Harry felt Fenrir collapse against him. With a stupendous effort, he pushed the werewolf off and onto the floor as a jet of green light came flying toward him. He ducked and ran headfirst into the fight. His feet met something squashy and slippery on the floor, and stumbled. There were 2 bodies lying there, lying face down in a pool of blood, but there was no time to investigate. Harry now saw red hair flying like flames in front of him. Ginny was locked in combat with the lumpy Death Eater, Amycus, who was throwing hex after hex at her while she dodged them. Amycus was giggling, enjoying the sport. "Crucio! Crucio! You can't dance forever, pretty impedimenta!" yelled Harry. His jinx hit Amycus in the chest. He gave a pig-like squeal of pain, which I won't attempt. I find it too, a bit too noisy for my eardrums. And was lifted off his feet and slammed into the opposite wall, slid down it, and fell out of sight behind Ron, Professor McGonagall, and Lupin, each of whom was battling a separate Death Eater. Beyond them, Harry saw Tonks fighting an enormous blonde wizard who was sending curses flying in all directions so that they ricocheted off the walls around them, cracking stone, shattering the nearest window. "Harry, where did you come from?" Ginny cried, but there was no time to answer her. He put his head down and sprinted forward, narrowly avoiding a blast that erupted over his head, showering them all in bits of wall. Snape must not escape. He must catch up with Snape. "Take that!" shouted Professor McGonagall, and Harry glimpsed the female Death Eater, Electo, sprinting away down the corridor with her arms over her head, her brother right behind her. He launched himself after them, but his foot caught on something, and the next moment he was lying across someone's legs. Looking around, he saw Neville's pale, round face flat against the floor. "Neville, were you up?" muttered Neville, who was clutching his stomach. "Harry, Snape and Malfoy ran past." "I know, I'm on it," said Harry, aiming a hex from the floor at the enormous blonde Death Eater who was causing most of the chaos. The man gave a howl of pain as the spell hit him in the face. He wheeled around, staggered, and then pounded away after the brother and sister. Harry scrambled up from the floor and began to sprint along the corridor, ignoring the bangs issuing from behind him, the yells of others to come back, and the mute call of the figures on the ground whose fate he did not yet know. He skidded around the corner, his trainer slippery with blood. Snape had an immense head start. Was it possible that he already entered the cabinet in the room of requirement? Or had the Order made steps to secure it, to prevent the Death Eaters retreating that way? He could hear nothing but his own pounding feet, his own hammering heart as he sprinted along the next empty corridor. But then spotted a bloody footprint that showed at least one of the fleeing Death Eaters was heading toward the front doors. Perhaps the room of requirement was indeed blocked. He skidded around another corner and a curse flew past him. He dived behind a suit of armor that exploded. He saw the brother and sister running down the marble staircase ahead and aimed jinxes at them, but merely hit several bewigged witches in a portrait on the landing who ran screeching into the neighboring paintings. Filch is gonna have fun restoring that painting if my memory of him trying to restore the fat ladies is any indication. As he left the wreckage of armor, Harry heard more shouts and screams. Other people within the castle seemed to have awoken. He pelted toward a shortcut, hoping to overtake the brother and sister, then close in on Snape and Malfoy, who must surely have reached the grounds by now. Remembering to leap the vanishing step halfway down the concealed staircase, he burst through a tapestry at the bottom and out into a corridor where a number of bewildered and pajama-clad Hufflepuffs stood. I wonder if some of my Hufflepuff relatives would be in the same suit. But then again, I'm PJ-clad right now, and I'm a Gryffindor, so... You're in good company, Hufflepuff. You're in good company. Harry, we heard a noise and someone said something about the Dark Monk, began Ernie Macmillan. Out of the way! Please, yelled Harry, knocking two boys aside as he sprinted toward the raining... Well, that would change the trajectory, wouldn't it? Sorry, toward the landing. Not raining, I promise. I don't know why raining slipped out. I am so sorry. I'm excited for season 27 of SVU, okay? And down the remainder of the marble staircase. The open doors had been blasted open. There were smears of blood on the flagstones, and several terrified students stood huddled against the walls. One or two still cowering with their arms over their faces. Ah, the freeze response. Of sorts. The giant in Gryffindor hourglass had been hit by a curse, and the rubies within were still falling, with a loud rattle, onto the flagstones below. Harry flew across the entrance hall and out into the dark grounds. He could just make out three figures racing across the lawn, heading for the gates beyond which they could disapparate. By the looks of them, the huge blonde Death Eater, and some way ahead of him, Snape and Malfoy. The cold night air ripped at Harry's lungs as he tore after them. He saw a flash of light in the distance that momentarily silhouetted his quarry. He did not know what it was, but continued to run, yet not near enough to get a good aim with the curse. Another flash, shouts of retaliatory... Thank you, J.K. Rowling. Jets of light, and Harry understood. Hagrid had emerged from his cabin and was trying to stop the Death Eaters escaping. And though every breath seemed to shred his lungs, and the stitch in his chest was like fire, Harry sped up as an unbidden voice in his head said, Not Hagrid. Not Hagrid too. Something caught Harry hard in the small of the back, and he fell forward, his face smacking the ground. Well, I don't really want to smack my face into the ground. That would hurt. So just pretend that my book's the ground for a moment. blood pouring out of both nostrils. He knew, even as he rolled over, his wand ready, that the brother and sister had overtaken using his shortcut, were closing behind him. Impedimenta! He yelled as he rolled over again, crouching close to the dark ground, and miraculously his jinx hit one of them, who stumbled and fell, tripping up the other. Harry leapt to his feet and sprinted on after Snape. And now he saw the vast outline of Hagrid, illuminated by the light of the crescent moon. Which crescent? Waxing or waning? I think waning fits this chapter's themes a little better, so we'll presume it's waning. Revealed suddenly behind clouds, the blonde Death Eater was aiming curse after curse at the gamekeeper. But Hagrid's immense strength and toughened skin he had inherited from his giantess mother seemed to be protecting him. The recurring theme continues. And for those who don't know yet, I'll branch out on later. You're gonna have to wait. Sorry. Snape and Malfoy, however, were still running. They would soon be beyond the gates, able to disapparate. Harry tore past Hagrid and his opponent, took aim at Snape's back and yelled, "Stupefy!" He missed. The jet of red-white soared past Snape's head. Snape shouted, "Run, Draco!" and turned. 20 yards apart, he and Harry looked at each other before raising their wands simultaneously. Whoosh! But Snape parried the curse, knocking him. Oh, hi. A leaf joined us. Anyway. Where was I? I'm just gonna reread the paragraph then. But Snape parried the curse, knocking Harry backward off his feet before he completed. Harry rolled over and scrambled back up again as the huge Death Eater behind him yelled, "Incendio!" Harry heard an explosive bang! And a dancing orange light spilled all over them. Well, I don't know about orange, but yellow's the closest we've got. Actually, hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. These should suffice for the orange. I know they probably look brown in the lighting, but these should suffice for orange. Perks of reading the first chapter during autumn, right? Anyway. Dancing orange light spilled all over them. Hagrid's house was on fire. I wonder if the Wizarding World has firefighters. If Aurors are the equivalent to a police force, then surely they have to have an... Okay, if the Harry Potter universe / Wizarding World that we all love so much has Aurors as the equivalent to police, and they have St. Mungo's for a hospital, in addition to the hospital wing Madame Pomfrey runs at Hogwarts, why don't they have Wizarding Firefighters? Like, that would cover all of the first responders. Like, do they use Muggle firefighters? Like, how would Wizarding Firefighters work? Do they hold their wands and cast Aqua Magenti so often, or how does it work? I must know! I'm a huge fan of the One Chicago universe as well, and I'm super stoked that we have 6 days until the new seasons for Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, and Chicago PD. So this is what's running that up. We're big Dick Wolf fans in this house. Although I do wish he would get on with making Alex and Wave canon already. And for those who don't know yet, watch SVU. Watch SVU. makes sense if you watch SVU. There I go again with Odd Topic. I love you too, ADHD. But onto the chapter before I get distracted yet again. But seriously though, how do Wizarding Firefighters work? I must know! To the chapter onward with the chapter. Find another Avo! Hagrid bellowed. Push! Yelled Harry for the second time, aiming for the figure ahead illuminated in the dancing firelight. But Snape blocked the spell again. Harry could see him sneering. No unforgivable curse from you, Potter. He shouted over the rushing of the flames, Hagrid's yells, and the wild yelping of the trapped Fang. Oh, hug for Hagrid in this moment. You haven't got the nerve or the ability. And cook! Harry roared, but Snape deflected the spell with the almost lazy flick of his arm. Fight back! Harry screamed at him. Fight back, you coward! Coward. Did you call me Potter? Shouted Snape. Your father would never attack me unless it was for one. What would you call him? I wonder. Still looked again, again, and again, until you learn to keep your mouth shut and mind closed, Potter, sneered Snape, deflecting the curse once more. Now, come, he shouted at the huge Death Eater behind Harry. It is time to be gone before the ministry turns up. And Petty! But before he could finish this jinx, excruciating pain hit Harry. He keeled over in the grass. Someone was screaming. He would surely die of this agony. Snape was going to torture him to death or madness. No, roared Snape's voice, and the pain stopped as suddenly as it had started. Harry lay curled on the grass, clutching his wand and panting. Somewhere overhead Snape was shouting, "Oh, you've forgotten all orders. Potter belongs to Dark Lord. We are to leave him. Go. Go!" And Harry felt the ground shudder under his face as the brother and sister and the enormous Death Eater obeyed, running toward the gates. Harry uttered an an inarticulate yell of rage. In that instant, he cared not whether he lived or died. Pushing himself to his feet again, he staggered blindly toward Snape, the man he now hated as much as he hated Voldemort himself. Sectum! Snape flicked his wand and the curse was repelled yet again. But Harry was mere feet away now, and he could see Snape's face clearly at last. He was no longer sneering or jeering. The blazing flames showed a face full of rage. Mustering all his powers and concentration, Harry thought, Nephi, no, Potter, screamed Snape. There was a loud bang! I know it's not necessarily, I know it's more of a slam than a bang, but work with it here. And Harry was soaring backward, hitting the ground hard again, and this time his wand flew out of his hand. He could hear Hagrid yelling and Fane howling as Snape closed in and looked down on him where he lay. Wandless and defenseless as Dumbledore had been. Snape's pale face, illuminated by the dancing... I am excited for SVU, okay? But I won't deny that dancing cabin makes a nice mental image. Sorry. Flaming cabin was suffused with hatred just as it had been before he cursed Dumbledore. You don't my spells against me, Potter. It was I who invented them. I, the half-blood prince. And you turn my inventions on me like your filthy father, won't you? I don't think so. No. Harry dived for his wand. Snape shot a hex at it and it flew feet away into the darkness and out of sight. Kill me then, panted Harry, who felt no fear at all, but only rage and contempt. Kill me like you killed him, you coward! Don't, screamed Snape, and his face was suddenly demented, inhuman, as though he was in as much pain as the yelping, howling dog stuck in the burning house behind them. Oh, hugs for Hagrid. Hugs for Hagrid. Holy coward. And he smashed at the air. Harry felt a white-hot whip-like something hit him across the face and was slammed backward into the ground. Spots of light burst in front of his eyes, and for a moment all the breath seemed to have gone from his body. Then he heard a rush of wings above him, and something enormous obscured the stars. Buckbeak had blown at Snape, who staggered backward as the razor-sharp claws slashed at him. As Harry raised himself into a sitting position, his head still swimming from its last contact with the ground, yeah, that would probably qualify as a concussion. I'm no medical expert, so take it for what it's worth, but I'm pretty sure that qualifies as a concussion. He saw Snape running as hard as he could, the enormous beast flapping behind him and screeching as Harry had never heard him screech. Harry struggled to his feet, looking around groggily for his wand, hoping to give chase again. But even as his fingers fumbled in the grass, discarding twigs, he knew it would be too late, and sure enough, by the time he had located his wand, he turned only to see the hippogriff circling the gates. Snape managed to disapparate just beyond the school's boundaries. "Hagrid!" muttered Harry, still dazed, looking around. "Hagrid!" He stumbled toward the burning house as an enormous figure emerged out of the flames, carrying Fane on his back. I may not value canine companions as often as, well, dog lovers do, but I do know a dog is a loyal companion for life, and I have some vague memories of having some in my younger years. Like, I remember Aurora and Ariel from when I was like 5. But beyond that, we mostly had cats, so I'm more of a cat person. However, I do have a wish to obtain a corgi and name it Elizabeth. But on to Potter, before I get distracted yet again. But yeah, you can breathe now, dog lovers. Fane's gonna be alright. With a cry of thankfulness, Harry sank to his knees. He was shaking in every limb. His body ached all over, and his breath came in painful stabs. "You alright, Harry? You alright? Speak to me, Harry." Hagrid's huge, hairy face was swimming above Harry, blocking out the stars. Harry could smell burnt wood and dog hair. He put out a hand and felt Fane's reassuringly warm and alive body quivering beside him. "I'm alright," panted Harry. "Are you?" "Of course I am. Take more than that. Finish my—" Hagrid put his hands under Harry's arms and raised him up with such force that Harry's feet momentarily left the ground before Hagrid set him upright again. He could see blood trickling down Hagrid's cheek from a deep cut under one eye, which was swelling rapidly. "We should put out your house," said Harry. "The charm's Aqua McGinty." I kind of foreshadowed that. Still would want to know how Wizarding Firefighters work, though. "Knew it was something like that," mumbled Hagrid, and he raised a smoldering pink flowery umbrella and said, "Open McGinty!" A jet of water flew out of the umbrella tip. Harry raised his wand arm, which felt like lead, and murmured, "Open McGinty!" too. Together, he and Hagrid poured water on the house until the last flame was extinguished. "Not too bad," said Hagrid hopefully a few minutes later, looking at the smoking wreck. "Nothing Dumbledore won't be able to put right." "Oh, Hagrid." Harry felt a searing pain in his stomach at the sound of the name, and the silence and stillness rose inside him. "Hagrid, I was bonding up a couple of bowtruckle eggs when I heard them coming," said Hagrid sadly, still staring at his wrecked cabin. "I've been about the twigs, poor little things. R.I.P. bowtruckles." "Hagrid, what happened there? It just saw them Deathly just running down from the castle. But what was Snape doing with them? Where's it going? Was he chasing them?" Harry cleared his throat. It was dry from panic and the smoke. "Hagrid, he killed," said Hagrid wildly, staring down at Harry. Snape killed? What are you on about, Harry? Dumbledore, said Harry. Snape killed Dumbledore. Hagrid simply looked at him, the middle of his face that could be seen completely blank, uncomprehending. Oh, look! Another freeze response of sorts? Yeah, I'm classifying this as a freeze response because obviously he's paralyzed from the news. And he just... His 5 stages of grief are kicking in and starting with denial. So I'm classifying this as a freeze response and denial stage of grief. And let's be real, Harry's probably feeling it too. So it's just really impactful. Again, sorry for the psychologically in-depth, but I did kind of warn you about it, and season 27 of SVU starts tonight, so I'm just... I'm excited for it, if you cannot tell. I promise I will try not to go off topic again. Emphasis on try. But, onto the chapter. Well, Harry is dead. Snape killed him. Don't say that, said Hagrid roughly. Snape killed Dumbledore. Oh, but it's stupid, Harry. Let's make you say that. I saw what happened. He did see it, Hagrid. You couldn't have. I saw it, Hagrid. And like I said, he did see it, Hagrid. Hagrid shook his head. His expression was disbelieving, but sympathetic, and Harry knew that Hagrid thought he had sustained a blow to the head. That he was confused, perhaps by the after effects of a jinx. What must have happened was Dumbledore must have told Snape to go with them Death Eaters, Hagrid said confidently. I suppose he's got to keep us covered. Well, let's get back to the school. Come on, Harry. Harry did not attempt to argue or explain. He was still shaking uncontrollably. Hagrid would find out soon enough. Too soon. As they directed their steps back toward the castle, Harry saw many of its windows were wet now. He could imagine clearly the scenes inside as people moved from room to room, telling each other that Death Eaters had got in, that the mark was shining over Hogwarts, that somebody must have been killed. The oak front door stood open ahead of them, light flooding out onto the drive and the lawn. Slowly, uncertainly, dressing-gowned people were creeping down the steps, looking around nervously for some sign of the Death Eaters who had fled into the night. Harry's eyes, however, were fixed upon the ground at the foot of the tallest tower. He imagined that he could see a black huddled mass lying in the grass there, though he was really too far away to see anything of the sort. Even as he stared wordlessly at the place where he thought Dumbledore's body must lie, however, he saw people beginning to move toward it. What are they all looking at? Said Hagrid as he and Harry approached the castle front, then keeping as close as he could to their ankles. What's that, lying on the grass? Hagrid added sharply, heading now toward the foot of the astronomy tower, where a small crowd was congregating. See it, Ever? Right at the foot of the tower, under where the mark... Mind me, you don't think someone got thrown? Hagrid fell silent, the thought apparently too horrible to express aloud. Hagrid walked along... Sorry. Harry walked alongside him, feeling the aches and pains in his face and his legs where the various hexes of the last half hour hit him, though in an oddly detached way, as though somebody near him was suffering. What was real and inescapable was the awful, pressing feeling in his chest. He and Hagrid moved, dreamlike, through the murmuring crowd at the very front, where the dumbstruck students and teachers had left a gap. Hagrid heard Hagrid's moan of pain and shock, but he did not stop. He walked slowly forward until he reached the place where Dumbledore lay and crouched down beside him. He had known there was no hope from the moment that the full body-bound curse Dumbledore had placed upon him lifted, known that it could have happened only because its caster was dead. But there was still no preparation for seeing him there, spread-eagled, broken. The greatest wizard Harry had ever, or whatever, met. Dumbledore's eyes were closed, but for the strange angle of his arms and legs, he might have been sleeping. Harry reached out, strained the half-moon spectacles upon the crooked nose, and wiped a trickle of blood from the mouth of his own sleeve. Then he gazed down at the wise old face and tried to absorb the enormous and incomprehensible truth that never again would Dumbledore speak to him. Never again could he help. The crowd murmured behind Harry. After what seemed like a long time, he became aware that he was kneeling upon something hard and looked down. The locket they had managed to steal so many hours before had fallen out of Dumbledore's pocket. It had opened, perhaps due to the force with which it hit the ground. And although he could not feel more shock, horror, or sadness than he felt already, Harry knew as he picked it up that there was something wrong. He turned the locket over in his hands. This was neither as large as the locket he remembered seeing in the pensive, nor there were any markings upon it. No sign of the ornate S that was supposed to be Slytherin's mark. Moreover, there was nothing inside but for a scrap of folded parchment wedged tightly into the place where a portrait should have been. Automatically, without really thinking about what he was doing, Harry pulled out the fragment of parchment, opened it, and read by the light of many wands that had been lit behind him. To the Dark Lord, I know I would be dead long before you read this, but I want you to know it was I who discovered your secret. I have stolen the Rib Corpus and intend to destroy it as soon as I can. I face death in the hope that when you meet your match, you will be mortal once more. R.A.B. And you should remember that, R.A.B. If you don't, I will have to explain much, much later, because obviously that would be, spoilers. But R.A.B. should be familiar to you. Unless you're feeling like Harry in this moment. Harry neither knew nor cared what the message meant. Only one thing mattered. This was not a Horcrux. Dumbledore had weakened himself by drinking that terrible potion for nothing. Harry crumpled the parchment in his hands, and his eyes burned with tears as Thane began to howl behind him. And that is the end of this chapter. Here's a howl for Thane. I know it's more lupine in the ways it's more wolf-like, but, you know. But that's the end of today's chapter. Join me next week for chapter 29, the Phoenix Lament. Until then, bye! And SVU fans, I will have a separate video for a reaction of the season 27 premiere. Or I'll try to. But until then, bye!